Welcome to the Hard Skills Show with me, Dr. Mira Brancu. On this show, we discuss how to develop the nuanced hard skills needed to drive significant systemic change to make a real impact through your leadership. Be ready, take notes, I always do, reflect deeply, and identify one small step to further develop your hard skills muscle. Now, every year, organizations have employees who transition into parenthood. What do they need? Are there generational differences in trends and expectations? How does this impact team culture, retention, productivity? Well, today's guest, Sarah Olin, will share insights into the impact of making this a priority, how to do it with grace, align it with company goals, retain this top talent demographic, and we'll learn some creative methods for maintaining team productivity during extended leaves. So this is a great topic for our season 3's focus on mapping a leadership strategy and an organizational strategy. So great to have you on the show, Sarah.
Oh, so good to be with you. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled.
Yeah, I'm excited too. So let me just tell you a little bit about Sarah Olin. She is the leading voice in coaching and transformation for working parents. With years of experience and understanding what parents need to thrive, she co-founded Lumo, Lumo, to help progressive organizations support their employees with the transition to working parenthood. Trained by world-renowned leaders, including Dr. Brené Brown, Sarah has coached leaders at the UN, NBA, Google, Calvin Klein, among others. She was featured as a keynote at Amazon's first ever International Working Moms Day. So she has got the credentials to share this experience with you. So very excited to dig in. Fun icebreaker, Sarah. What was the most unique or creative working parent strategy you have seen or personally experienced?
Oh my gosh. Well, gifts is one of my love languages. And I've just seen some really beautiful, thoughtful gifts that are just, it's the small things. Even a cupcake on someone's desk saying welcome back when they get back from leave, just things that are meaningful and important to the person are, and you've got to know people and be in relationship to be able to do that. Um, so yeah, I think little gifts and little thoughtful notes and things like that, it seems so small, but we know that what really matters to people is that they feel seen and supported.
Yeah, I appreciate that because sometimes we feel like you have to hide your not just your pregnancy if you're pregnant, or but also your parenthood. Sometimes some of us worry that leaders or other people in our organization are going to judge us or make assumptions that we're going to be not ready, not able to come back to work, or that our attention will be split. And just a welcoming gift to
Mm.
say, I acknowledge you're a parent and congratulations and welcome. And this is a nice, good thing. Actually, I'm resonating with like, it's not just the gift, it's the meaning behind it.
It's
Right.
totally the meaning behind it because again, it could be a cupcake or, something really small. It's funny. I remember doing a training with this leader and the thing that she loved was mechanical pencils, like little things like that. It just tells people, I know you, I see you, I care about you. I've thought about you beyond this moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, what got you into this in the first place? What drives your passion for this topic?
Yeah, so I became a coach and leadership trainer at the same time I became a mother. And I was having this really high level coaching. I was in this container of lots and lots of support. And my career was doing this after becoming a mother. And so many of my peers and colleagues were having the opposite experience. They were overwhelmed, under supported, just at their wits' end. And I said, I'm learning things and I'm getting support in a way that's allowing me to have this great experience. And I'm not this magical unicorn, I'm just a lady. And I said, the truth is that every woman and every mother needs these mindset shifts. They need this level of support in order to have a great experience, because becoming that, and that's the transition that we support at Luma, working professional to working parent. That's the big paradigm shift in how do we have a great experience versus being victimized by it and it's happening to us and now I have to react, versus thoughtfully and intentionally respond and create my life in the way that I want to.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think people think about just the massive emotional, psychological, and physical shift
Oh,
that people experience when they enter parenthood, right? It is tremendous.
it's huge. It's such a change. And oftentimes, especially when we've got really high performers in big roles, rising stars that are preparing for a leave, they're scared. And everyone's scared. We train and speak to the three demographics that are impacted by leave. It's the employee going out on leave, it's the manager, and it's the team left behind. There's a tremendous impact to the whole ecosystem, but everyone in their own way is scared, overwhelmed. The team left behind, they know what that means for them. It's just going to mean more work. The employee going out on leave knows what it means. It's going to mean more work for my colleagues because this was me a year ago, 6 months ago, 3 years ago, whatever the case is. And the manager is typically just hanging on by a thread and trying to make it all work. And they're just like, one more thing. So, one of the conversations that we're in quite a bit is going beyond policy and actually into culture, and how can we create supportive leave cultures, not just having great policies, but true cultures that support leave.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm also thinking um it's not just sort of the, I like that you mentioned culture because it's not just the um sort of loss or change in work productivity and habits.
Right.
It's also um changes in personal roles and identities. You know,
Yes.
what does this mean for me now that I'm a person in this role who is a parent? Or what does this mean for me who is stepping into this new opportunity or role or extending the things that I do that I didn't do before, or things like that? There's kind of some identity shifts among all the people involved as well, but especially the parent too.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things where there again, everybody's a little bit scared, some more than others in the process, but that person also, the employee also has to contend with the way that they were successful prior to having children is likely not going to be the way that they're successful going forward, right? Because for so many high performing women, we know that they're overworking, they've got perfectionist tendencies, they're in the grind. So we know that once you have a child, that isn't accessible. You just physically can't do it anymore the way that you did. So a reinvention is possible. That's actually what's available. That's the opportunity, but we need support in order to be able to see that. Otherwise, all we can see is, I can't do this. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Right. And then we have people leaving because they don't see a clear path forward.
Yeah, yeah. That is that is the retention and flight risk issue, right? Can you create enough of a strong, supportive work culture for all involved
Yep.
that people stay engaged and can find it easier to stay engaged during these time periods, right?
Yeah, we say when an employee announces a leave of any kind, but particularly a parental leave, it's a love 'em or leave 'em moment. So either this employee is going to be endeared to you forever, or they're plotting their exit. And we've had, we were meeting, I mentioned that we were in New York last week and we met with a huge company, and they were telling us that they have a challenge around their managers. They've got a beautiful policy, parental leave policy, great benefits that just massages, I mean, wonderful, wonderful. But when, this rising star announced, hey, I'm going out on leave, parental leave, the manager said, well, you're going to be out in Q4. That's really not great for us.
Mm,
And I mean, how do you think that employee was left?
yeah. Yeah. So you can have the policies, you can have
Yes,
everything set, and that doesn't fully address the culture piece.
it doesn't come close.
Yeah. So let's as we're um starting to think through the strategy, let's take a step back and just definitions. This is going to be a very simple, seemingly simple question. I think it's actually kind of a complex question. But because there's a lot of nuance here. How, when you're thinking about parental leave, I know you noticed that you were being sort of very intentional
Mm,
about how you use that, right? You didn't say maternity leave, you said parental leave.
mm.
How do you define parent? Um, you know, women, men, adoption, grandparents, uncles, fostering, like what do you think about when you think about leave and parental leave?
Yes. I, all of the above. It is those that identify as parents, and some would even say caregivers. And we do a lot of work because there's so much overlap. When people identify as caregivers or parents, we empower that and we look, how can we support those people in those roles?
Yeah, I appreciate that. We're using words like parents and parental leave, but it really does apply to anybody who becomes a caregiver in some way to a dependent.
Exactly. And it happens in so many different ways where, there's a loss in the family and a child needs a niece or a nephew, or it happens all the time.
Yeah. Um, could this also apply to people who are going on leave for other kind of family care, like dependent care, but like aging parents or something like that? Or when you think about it, are you thinking child?
It's interesting. We have different programs to support different things, but we have a specific manager program for leave, and it's for all sorts of leave.
Mm.
So the tough part is policies are so different across across companies, across state lines, right? We're seeing a lot of that with the organizations that they work with, hybrid work and people working from all over can be really challenging.
Oh, let's dig into that after the ad break. I really want to learn a little bit more after the ad break around like, how do you think about policy? I never even thought about the differences in how you navigate different state laws or global companies and their leave policies. So we are entering an ad break. You're listening to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Branco, and our guest, Sarah Olin. We air on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern. If you'd like to join our online audience and ask questions right now that we can answer in real time, you can find us on LinkedIn and YouTube at talkradio.nyc. And we'll be right back with our guest in just a moment.
Are you a conscious co creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Welcome back to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guest, Sarah Olin from Lumo. We were talking about how we define parenting and parental leave, and we got into talking about something I've never thought about before, which is how do we create policies for companies that have employees living all over the place? It could be in this country, and there might be different state laws and things to think about. Could be global companies. What do you think about, Sarah, when companies approach you and want to explore this? Like, what are the considerations that they need to be thinking about?
It's really, really, it's so complicated. And I think to myself, thank you, God, that I am not on the compliance side of this conversation, because that's not our expertise. Our expertise is around developing parents and caregivers as leaders. So we really focus there. We can advise and make suggestions based on their values. And it's really complicated because it's highly regulated in some places, unregulated in others. Then we've got global companies that, if they have certain laws in some companies and not in the US. So it becomes a really, really big challenge for organizations. And we tell everyone the same thing. You've got to skill up and support this demographic. That's the most important thing. And think about how you're going to do that. What's meaningful? What do your people actually need?
Yeah. So it sounds like sometimes it's important to partner with someone like you who focuses on sort of the gaps, the skills, the supporting leaders who are going through this transition, plus HR partners and regulatory partners to think about this sort of complicated policy culture stuff, right?
Yeah. The policy stuff is huge, and the paperwork alone would send me running. And we have great partners that we use that specialize in this sort of work, in supporting companies in handling this, because especially for small and mid-sized companies, it's a monster.
Yeah. So there's two other sort of demographic questions I have. So the first was about like making sure that company leaders are thinking through challenges, differences across state lines, policies, and things like that. The second is curious about generational needs. What do you see, if anything, as differences in millennials or Gen Zs when it comes to how they're thinking about parental leave and how they're sort of hoping their company is thinking about supporting them?
Yeah, I joke all the time with my team that the youth are going to save us all. And millennial talent now dominates the workforce. And I read a stat that Gen Z will be 40+% by 2040. So it's coming, and they have a different value system. They were brought up in a very different way. We have data around millennials that say that they'll leave one company for less money to go to a company with better benefits, right? So we're really seeing value-driven behavior, and they relate to that that the company is interviewing them as much as they're interviewing the company. They operate outside of the old command and control model of work. They're not willing, and we know that they'll leave because that's what the data tells us. Gen Z, we're still gathering data. I think what we're seeing is some decline in births. That's the trend right now, and it's evolving and changing all the time. But what we do know about younger generations is that they're very clear on their values, and it's not enough for companies just to say we care about you. They actually have to demonstrate it with empathy every day. Mira, I'm in these conversations, and someone just yesterday said, I left a competitor because their leadership was terrible and I'm making less money now, but the culture was so poor I couldn't stay. And I said, wow, it's just companies have to stop pretending that it doesn't matter how they treat people.
Yeah. It's a massive shift. Right. And this is where the hard skills comes in, right? Like it's easy to just give money, like a promotion,
Sure.
right? Or a bonus or whatever. Giving empathy and knowing how to meet people's value-based needs, not easy. Not easy.
It's true. It means that you have to take time with people. It means you need to be in relationship. And we're in the most multi-generational workforce that we've ever been in. And we actually, inside of our manager training, have a module on managing leave in a multi-generational workforce. Because as leaders, we have to be self-aware about our own bias. We've talked to leaders who have literally said things like, well, nobody did anything for me when I was going out on leave. And it's like, I'm so sorry that happened, and that's true. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't take care of our people, right? But there's some unhealed things that need to be tended to.
That's a good point. Sometimes managers don't think about it because they didn't have access to it. And so some of the work is retraining ourselves in giving what we weren't given.
Yeah,
right.
Sure. And being a champion for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we talked about considerations about state lines and policies around that, generational needs and differences. The last one that was on my mind, and mainly because I'm very interested in this, is supporting women in leadership. And I write a lot about this in Psychology Today, and I focus a lot about the hidden challenges that women don't bring forth, but they're navigating when they personally become parents, whether it's because they've given birth or through other, means. And some of the things that I think about with that is, number one, like if they're undergoing fertility treatments. I wrote a blog post about that one. Yes. And how this is not something that's spoken, it's still taboo. We don't share, right? Those challenges, and yet it affects many women in the background while they're trying to also lead, right? Or
Huge.
women in leadership who undergo breast cancer treatments and things like that, right? These are things that women don't necessarily talk about, but they're still trying to navigate the leadership role expectations. And so, and then there's still disparities in household, contributions at home.
Absolutely.
And so I'm just curious, like, what are the kinds of things that you think about with that demographic in terms of support and the things that you talk with leaders about when it comes to, supporting women in leadership going through these kinds of things?
Yeah, we say, Mira, that the closest thing to a silver bullet is really high level coaching to support these women, because this was part of the reason for our gathering last week. Women are facing unprecedented challenges in 2024, whether it's women's rights or the rising demands of caregiving, an election. There's so many considerations, and the modern leader is expected to be all things to all people, right? And collectively, we're experiencing so much trauma. There's wars happening all over the world. People are being impacted, gun violence. There's so many things, right? A bridge collapsing today. There's just always things happening in the world that leaders aren't equipped to deal with. And oftentimes, when we look at managers, they're just promoted over and over again because they're great at their job. They're great at a specific skill. They're not necessarily fabulous leaders. So we need to support, skill up, and train our leaders, men and women, but particularly women, because now we've got, in addition to those amazing women going through fertility treatments and breast cancer, now we've got, our strongest women leaders in perimenopause and menopause.
Right.
So
That's right.
there's so much to contend with, and we have to take care of people, because I promise you there are companies that are, and that's who will not only retain those fabulous people, but build strong talent pipelines, attract talent. One of our clients is Bobby. They're the first ever baby formula company in the US, women founded, women led, and they transparently posted their parental leave policy. And within 24 hours of posting, they saw a 50% increase in applications to jobs. And the caliber of applicant had increased as well. So there's something to be said. And I'll tell you, Mira, my own experience is that at Luma, when we post a job opening, we are inundated with far overqualified candidates, because they want to be in a culture where they're cared for, where they can be authentic, where they can be vulnerable, where they can be all the things that they are, where they can be mothers, partners, daughters, friends, where they can be themselves.
That's the business case, folks. If you
Right?
needed a reason, that's the business case, folks.
Yeah.
Now, when we're reaching an ad break, when we come back, this is partly public service announcement for listeners, and what I want you to speak to after this ad break, which is that Sarah is not saying coaching is there because we need to fix women. This is not a fix women mentality, right? This is about
Nope.
helping women navigate additional challenges on top of the usual challenges, and recognizing that the challenges have increased for all leaders, and for women, they're still navigating more, right? So
100%.
there's a difference there for this kind of executive coaching that she's talking about. The second is, it's also not mental health. She described a lot of things that were things that are affecting our mental health globally, right? And there's a difference between when you need to seek mental health care versus when coaching is the ideal intervention or engagement for optimal performance in your role as a leader when you're navigating all of these challenges. So I'd love to hear when we come back, what is the kind of coaching and why people seek that for navigating these challenges during and after parental leave, the parental leave transition, when you're in leadership, when you're sort of navigating leadership. So we'll be right back after this ad break with Sarah Olin and with me on the hard skills.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guest, Sarah Olin from Lumo. And we're talking about making the best of our high talent who are also expecting parents and transitioning into parenthood. Where we left off is thinking about how we can support our caregivers and parents who are transitioning into the parenthood, who are also in leadership roles or on their way, or expanding in much higher, greater leadership roles, which is a very unique subsection of leaders. And we're seeing more and more of these leaders. We're seeing more millennials in leadership roles who are, entering parenthood, because this is the age, right? Usually. And then, we're also seeing all kinds of other sort of caregiver experiences. When we talk about offering high level executive coaching and leadership coaching, we hear things like upskilling. And when we talk about offering that to highly talented women, I don't want people to get the perception that women need some special fixing, right? That's an old school thing, but rather that they're navigating the same much higher challenges as other leaders. And in addition, these parental challenges that come with them, all kinds of questions around identity and leadership identity, questions around, can I make all of this happen in work? How do I meet my own values around this as well, right? So when you think about those, where does coaching fit? And then I can sort of add more if we sort of delve into the mental health piece too, but where does coaching fit in all of this?
Yeah. Well, I always tell people we don't do remedial coaching. We just don't. It is for high performers who are great and have some things in the way. They might be overwhelmed. They've gotten into a rut. Every great leader has gaps. And, the modern employee is contending with so much, especially as parents and caregivers, right? We've got unprecedented work. We have all the work that we do at home. If we've got family members who need support, a child that needs extra care, there's so many considerations. So our philosophy is just, we've got to support these people, and coaching is a great tool for support. I'm working with Mira, I only work with the C-suite now. And I tell them, I'm here to take out the trash. I'm here to be a safe space for them to work through all the things that they've got to work through professionally, personally, to listen, to provide an objective, to be a thought partner, right? But also to say, this is who you are, but this isn't what I'm seeing, right? Like, this is who I know you to be, but I notice that the experience is way over here. What's going on? And it's really about reminding people who they are and about what's possible, because people get hurt, they get upset, they're not great at processing. We're not taught that stuff. We're not taught how to forgive and deal with our own emotions and our own humanity. We're taught, like, I think about the earliest places where we learn about forgiveness. It's with your siblings usually, where, your sibling does something to you, or you do something to your sibling, and your parent says, say sorry, and you say sorry. And you're not sorry. You're not sorry at all. You just learn to lie and keep on trucking, and then get them better next time, or hide it, or whatever it is. And we're the same as adults. We have no muscles around this stuff. So we're really, from a coaching perspective, helping people work through the humanity of what it means to be a leader. And from a therapeutic perspective, there's the old adage, right? With coaching, we don't deal with trauma, addiction, or abuse. Have I ever coached people who've had trauma, dealt with addiction and abuse? Of course, because I've dealt with human beings. However, once they get into a coaching conversation, it's very future focused. It's, hey, what do you want to create? And if they've had these experiences, the addiction, the trauma, they've already been through therapy or had the right healing modalities in place to be able to be in a coaching conversation, which is really direct, which is not meant to work around issues, and I think in a therapeutic sense, there's more sensitivities, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The greatest difference here is coaching for any leader helps when you're ready to really engage in being pushed to really think thoughtfully about, is this working for me? And how do I function optimally? And how do I create the team and organization around me to function optimally, effectively? And then there's that culture piece and the values piece, right? It's hard to enter into that kind of experience with a coach, though, if you haven't sort of resolved these other things, or you're under such distress or impairment because of depression or anxiety or trauma experiences, and it's still raw, right? So that's just for audience's sake, that's how you sort of like evaluate where you are and where you need to lean into, right?
100%. Fully agree.
Yeah. Let's now think broader, from coaching perspective to organizational perspective. You had mentioned that you have developed some creative strategies to help companies around team productivity during extended leaves and retaining top talent. So I'm super curious about, what are some of these creative strategies that you've seen work?
Yeah. Well, no strategy can stand without the right mindset. So we always start there. So, for example, when we're going to go and do culture work or strategy work or organizational work, we first have to start with what's the relationship to leave? What's the culture around leave? And not what we say it is, what do people actually experience, right? Not the idealistic version, but what are people's lived experiences? So we start with the culture. And then we look at what kind of structures do we have in place to support? What's working about it, right? And then what's missing? What do we actually need? And we work with organizations where it's truly, truly an opportunity for growth and development when someone's out and leave. It's an opportunity to get to know the team better and to go across the organization and have leaders come together and say, hey, we need support in these 3 areas. Who on your team are you looking to develop from this standpoint or this standpoint, where it's true partnership, not just like, this is a great opportunity, winky, winky, for you to do more work or learn a new skill, where it's actually where there's buy-in and it's a true win-win, where this person really does want to learn and grow, and it means they can let go of things. And it's a real opportunity for people to say, what do we stop? What can we let go of? What's a not now, right? So the organization, there's an opportunity to actually be more agile and cut the fat on things that aren't serving us, and to get really clear around efficiencies and things like that. It's an opportunity to assess. And part of the training work that we do, Mira, with the employee is, how do you leave it better in your absence? How do you support the team and give them what they need, right? So it's all about deepening relationship. It's all about partnership. It's all about ownership. And that's the model of leadership that we train in. We train the managers, the team left behind, and the employee in this model of 100% ownership. So if everyone's owning it, there's high accountability, there's high trust. I know on my team, because we're all trained that way, if there's a breakdown, no matter where it's happening in the business, any of the founding members of my team could raise their hand and say, I could own it, whether or not it was in their purview or not.
Yeah, I love all of these ideas. What's coming to mind, I'm gonna poke a little bit at it just to see.
Poke.
So I love the idea of, this is an opportunity for people to flex, for people to take ownership, for people to have new opportunities, for you to explore efficiencies. Is there ever a risk? And if so, like, what do you do with the risk? That you find other people who have sort of taken on the opportunity to take on more things, and you've improved efficiency so much that the person who now wants to come back is finding that there isn't the same role or opportunity for them, or they've sort of been pushed out? And if so, like, then what is the adjustment there?
Yeah, I think there's always risk with there's never not risk. We're just either present to it or we're not. And I think that it's interesting, because I think that's many people's fears, right? When they're going out on leave, that's the number one, according to some research by Brene Brown, the number one fear in any organization is irrelevance. So I think that people have that across the board. And I've never met an organization that has said, we don't have work for you. And it might look slightly different, because that's part of natural consequences. I think that things change and evolve, right? If we're taking an extended leave, and we work with some companies that have a 6-month parental leave policy, things change in 6 months. Teams change, dynamics change. So if we have enough relationship, we can deal with anything and we can work it out. And fortunately, we have laws to protect people. It's like, okay, well, if this shifted enough so that it's unrecognizable, now what do I need to create? So I'm not saying that it's always easy or welcome, but I think most of the time it can have more positive outcomes when we are giving people opportunities and really in that inquiry. Because if it's the highest and best for the person, it's the highest and best for the org and vice versa. I really think that when we're looking at the highest and best, it will be the highest and best.
Yeah. And that's a really good point that I hadn't really thought about is, you know, 3 to 6 months, a lot can change. Organizations are constantly changing now, right? So there is never a guarantee that things will be the same for your job, regardless of whether you sit in your seat or not here, right?
Right? I know. And that's the thing. It's so funny because everyone went bananas around the pandemic and they're like, we have no control. It's like, you never did. You didn't want thinking that way, and it's like, they're hard conversations. It's a hard to be with thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to leave us off at this before our ad break. You never had control. That's deep. I'm going to just keep it right there. We are entering our next ad break. You're listening to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guest, Sarah Olin, and we'll be right back in just a moment. Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guest, Sarah Olin. Now, where we left off, which I just love how we came to this point, is to make a really important point about you never had control. And it sort of made me start thinking about, people attribute this saying to Peter Drucker. I read that actually he didn't say it this concisely. He had a much longer phrase, but culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? Meaning if you never had control in the first place,
Yep.
right? Then we have to be intentional about leaning into change. And therefore, it's the culture that's left that you can be most intentional about, that affects people the most, that affects outcomes the most.
Yeah. Listen, all of it matters. Of course, strategy matters, but again, it's the same thing with policy. If we don't have the leadership chops to back it up, it's paper thin, and it's not going to be empowered, and it's not going to work. It's not going to be effective without the culture. You need both. It's not an either or, actually. We need both.
Yeah. So that was my one takeaway. What is the one thing you would like people to take away from today's conversation?
Oh my gosh. I think for the women, parents, and caregivers, I think the takeaway I would give is to practice advocating for yourself in the same way you would for your children or the people you're caring for, because that's what's actually required to create change.
Say
Is to
more.
be willing to advocate for yourself. So I've seen parents in courtrooms, doing wild things, marching to protect and advocate for their children, going in to see principals and, fighting with doctors. I mean, when it comes to their children or the people that they're caring for, people will go very far. They will fight, they will be who they need to be to get the result that they're committed to. But when it comes to themselves, I don't see that same level of advocacy, especially with women. So that would be my takeaway. Practice 5% more, working towards that of, are you advocating for yourself the same way you would for your pet, for your child, for your partner, for your mother, for your best friend, right? We've got to start advocating for ourselves in that same way in order to create change.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll add a little bit more to that.
Yes.
One barrier I see, it's not, at all barriers, but one barrier I see is that women especially are socialized, at least in our culture, to care for others to the point of being so good at catching when someone else needs something and serving others and supporting others, that they become almost blind to when they need to serve themselves just as much, because they don't necessarily recognize it because they haven't been socialized to care for themselves in that way.
Yeah. Another great reason for coaching, because a great coach will point to that and actually won't let you get away with it because it doesn't work. It's unworkable.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's this great book. I'm going to grab it off my shelf really quickly to show you. It's called On Our Best Behavior. It was given to me by a client, but we're actually reading it this month for our book club at Lumo, The 7 Deadly Sins and the Price Women Pay to Be Good.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Thank you for recommending it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I haven't dug into it yet, but you're right. We have been totally socialized in one particular way, and our work is about unlearning. Yeah,
absolutely. If people want to learn more about Lumo and your work, where can they go?
They can go to LinkedIn, lumoleadership.com, LUMO. We're out there in the world. We're doing all kinds of things all the time. It's wild. It's so fun. It's so fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't share my screen just yet, but it is lumoleadership.com, and you'll see lots of information there about insights and articles and for businesses, for employees, all kinds of things. So, oh, look, I just got the share screen. So let me quickly share for those of you who are watching this, either now or later on. Here is the website so that you can see how to learn more, how to schedule a call, all those stats that she was describing. All right. Okay. So, what did you, audience, take away from today? And more importantly, what is one small change that you can implement this week based on what you learned from Sarah? Share it with us on LinkedIn at Mira Brancu or Sarah Olin, or at talkradio.nyc, so we can cheer you on. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, all over the place. LinkedIn is where I live online, so that's where I'm going to respond. I don't know about you, Sarah. Where are you?
Oh, I'm on the LinkedIn. I'm on the LinkedIn for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Via email, the Facebooks, the Instas. I try to stay away. It's just too much.
Too much. In addition to being a live show, we're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Please go subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, share with others to help increase our visibility, reach, and impact. This is me advocating for myself.
Yes.
That's right. The stuff we talk about on the show is part of our research-based strategic leadership pathway model that we teach in our Tower Scope Leadership Academy, a private coaching and learning community for socially conscious leaders in healthcare, academia, tech, and STEM industries looking to make a greater impact. To learn more and apply to the Leadership Academy, you can check us out at www.gotowerscope.com. And I'd like to thank talkradio.nyc for hosting. I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, your host of the Hard Skill Show. Thank you for joining us today, Sarah.
So happy to be here. It's a delight. It's just the best. It's so fun to talk about this stuff. There's just so much great work happening in the world and so much opportunity, truly.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about so many different ways that you can think about growing as a leader, helping your teammates and supporting them, thinking about the organizational impact and creative strategies to help people transition in and out of their parenting journey. So from there, think about what help you need. What help does your team need? What help can you offer your organization? And if you want to reach out, remember, it's lumoleadership.com. Have a great rest of your day, wherever you're tuning in from. Thanks again. This is The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guest, Sarah Olin.
Thank you.